I wanted to start with first talking about what Jukai is. And I want to be clear that not everybody here is scheduled to do Jukai. Most people are. Some people are here for the Precepts course, which is perfectly fine. But I want to create the context, the setting for Jukai. So Jukai is a special ceremony in the Zen tradition, and Jukai means the giving and receiving of the precepts. And among the first lines in one of the documents I posted on Rizuku for you all is a line that says that Buddhas give the precept to Buddhas. So it's a really fascinating first line or opening line, that Buddhas give them to Buddhas. And so what is the Buddha? The Buddha really is a name for the manifestation of the Absolute. A Buddha would be someone who is realized to the extent that the Absolute is functioning freely in their everyday life. Even though they're embodied as a human, the Absolute is the primary manifestation that's going on. And because it's understood that all beings are already fully awakened, they must be. The Absolute is fully present in each of you and in all of us, and it's fully awake. We're the ones that have the layering of personality, of social conditioning, familial conditioning, to where we take that as the most real. And so part of the spiritual journey is the unpacking of that, the questioning and the testing of that, and really opening more and more to deeper and direct contact with the Absolute, to the point that we end up resolving a lot of our personality proclivities and become a more pure vessel for the Dharma, for the teaching of the Absolute, the practices, and the transmission, the sharing of it. So this is where we start, that Buddhas transmit to Buddhas. And really the transmission has already happened. The Absolute is full always in each moment. What's wonderful about Lineage to me, and as you know, I've been doing a Zen Dharma transmission with Sando Roshi, which has been really a tremendous experience for me. I've just learned so much and am very clear on how much more I need to learn. And I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to do it. But part of what happens in the transmission of the precepts is that we are getting the full force and the intention of the Absolute to generatively live a life in the world where we see others as ourself and we treat them as ourself. And that's one of the lines from the Bible, I think, or maybe that's the golden rule. I could be confusing things, but to treat others as ourself, that's really the function. And that's really the practice of the precepts. But what we're getting, because we're doing this in a lineage context, is what I can feel when Sando Roshi and I are working, and we just finished working, one of the last sections of transmission is there's about 200 koans one does on the precepts. And so we've been working and just concluded those last week. And what you get with that transmission of the Absolute is flavored by the realization of all the masters of the lineage. So starting with the historical Buddha Shakyamuni Buddha, all the way forward to the present day, I can feel the particular contributions of each of these realized masters. And when I say master, I'm not limiting that to males. There are realized masters, both male and female, throughout history. And part of my process of transmission with Sando Roshi is that I'll be receiving the lineage, the traditional male lineage, and we also have a female lineage that our lineage has put together. And so we've talked about it, and I told him clearly I want to have the transmission of both lineages because I think it's important to recognize and not stay landed in just a patriarchal perspective. because we're talking about something that's generative, something that's the function of the love and the presence of the Absolute that causes that flower to break through the ground and come into life. And there is a ceremony, the Jukai ceremony, where we're also confirming our teacher-student relationship. This is where we formalize it. We say out loud that we're committing to each other. I'm participating in your practice from that point on. I'm watching, I'm guiding, I'm helping to the extent I can, and sometimes my help is to not be involved, to hold back and leave that space, because that space is where our work is. So that's part of the function of a teacher, is knowing how much space to maintain with each student. And in Jukai, the ceremony of Jukai, part of it is there's a giving of a rakusu. I'm wearing a rakusu today. This is what this is called. This is a layperson's garment. The monastics have what's called a kesa, which wraps around the body. You've seen them wear them where the shoulder is exposed, but they've got it wrapped around. For lay people, we don't have kesas. We have the rakusus. And so many of you have already ordered, and some have begun sewing your rakusus, the black rakusus. And so there's a process of sewing where we bring our best intention. I tell people, I think quite accurately, that the rakusu I sewed, my first rakusu 30 years ago or more, is probably the worst rakusu anybody's ever sewed. And one of the sewing teachers who was present during my Jukai ceremony told me mine was her favorite. I said, it looks like a 5-year-old sewed this rakusu, and she said, yes, it's the most beautiful. So it doesn't matter. It's not how great you are at sewing. It's what heart you bring with each stitch, being present, opening to the lineage, opening to the Absolute. You're sewing your commitment. You're uniting your commitment to your practice, to the lineage. And it doesn't mean that you can't practice elsewhere. It doesn't mean that at some point you may feel that I'm not the right teacher for that part of the journey. I mean, this is part of it too. And in Jukai, you also will be given 2 Dharma names. Typically it's done where the first Dharma name is encapsulating where your practice is today in this moment. And the second name is the name that we grow into. The name that I use now, Doetsu, is my second Dharma name. I dropped the first Dharma name and I've taken up the second one. It's likely that when I finish transmission with Sandra Roshi that I might get another Dharma name. That's not uncommon at that point. So I'll wait and see what happens with that. But we learn to live with the name that we have. Doetsu, Do means the way, and Etsu means joy. So it's basically joy of practice, joy of the Absolute is the name that I teach under at this point.